Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome back to my podcast if you're listening to this episode in the audio version only. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we are going to be diving into your June 2022 horoscopes. But before we do that, let me mention a few key things. All videos on my channel, all episodes on my podcast follow Western tropical astrology. In my practice, I use the whole sign house system. If you use another house system, then that is completely up to you. If you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. At the moment, I am taking bookings for 1 hour live Zoom astrology consultations for the end of June. In a live Zoom consultation, we can analyze your natal chart. Also, if there is time left, we can look into the year ahead. If you've got specific questions about the year ahead, if you have specific topics of interest that you would like us to do a deep dive into, such as your relationship, your professional path, we can absolutely do that. We can definitely also look at synastry and general compatibility in a 1 hour live Zoom consultation. Of course, in the span of 1 hour. So the 1 hour live Zoom consultation is the answer for pretty much all your astrological questions. If you're in doubt as to what to purchase from my website, that's pretty much it. For the time being, the audio recorded readings only are sold out. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is @RUX_Unbelievable. That's @RUX_Unbelievable in one word. June, folks, what does June look like? Well, first, let's take a moment to acknowledge how chaotic May has been. May has been pretty full on. Eclipse season was still ongoing. Mercury was retrograde. Mars got together with Neptune in Pisces. Chaos, maybe even confusion, lack of direction seem to have been some keywords for the month of May. Well, in June, it might just feel like we're moving forward. We have a plan. We know where we're going. It's much clearer to us. Mercury gets out of retrograde on the 3rd of June. Mars is in Aries throughout the entire month. Jupiter is in Aries as well. I do believe that collectively in June, we are probably going to feel like we're ready to take action. We are ready to, symbolically speaking, attack a situation, rather than retracing our steps, rather than kind of like weighing things, rather than wondering, is this the right thing to do? Is it not? No, Mars and Jupiter in Aries will probably first throw the punch and think about it later. And the punch will probably be motivated very much, of course, symbolically speaking, by our belief system. What else is happening in June? So Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius. It may feel like some of the challenges that we're dealing with, especially when it comes to specific tribes, specific minorities, it may feel like they're a little bit grinding to a halt. So it may not necessarily feel like we're moving forward with those issues. On the 10th of June, Mercury and Taurus will trine Pluto in Capricorn. Probably good news connected with food, institutions, maybe agriculture, possibly even the financial system. I mean, look at what happened in May. Basically, the crypto market took I think it's called nosedive. So that happened. On the 11th of June, Venus will conjunct Uranus and Taurus. A bit of a wild card day for all things romance, all things beauty, all things relationships, and possibly also all things women. So I would see this as maybe a day for protests concerning women's autonomy over their own body. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini. So Mercury is going to be in domicile. It might feel like our clarity of mind is even more crisp, more crystal clear. On the 14th of June, we have a full moon in Sagittarius at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So people who have planets around 23 degrees of mutable signs, so Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, you folks are going to feel this the most. This full moon will harmoniously aspect Saturn in Aquarius, but it will square Neptune in Pisces. So I do see maybe some sort of like good news connected with traveling, connected with commerce, maybe also connected with transportation in general. But at the same time, there are still some unknowns in the equation that we haven't yet dealt with, or there are still some people that maybe aren't yet benefiting from these good news. On the 15th of June, Mars will conjunct Chiron in Aries, and Venus will conjunct the North Node in Capricorn. This is a day when we might just feel like one of our deepest wounds is being activated and triggered, and we're like, I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna do something about this. It's also, I believe, one of the most important days of the year with Venus conjunct the North Node in Taurus. It's probably one of the most important days of the year when it comes to all Taurus topics at a mundane level. So the economy, food, agriculture, stability and security, and so on. On the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini will trine Saturn in Aquarius and square Neptune in Pisces. Again, it feels like on this day, there's some good news for the collective, for specific minorities, for specific groups of people, but they aren't necessarily catering to everyone. So not everyone is included almost. That's how I feel. On the 18th of June, Venus in Taurus will square Saturn in Aquarius. So there does seem to be a bit of a blockage here connected with women's issues, the female body, because let's not forget Taurus in general is connected with the body. On the 21st of June, the Sun moves into Cancer for the next 4 weeks, roughly. And Venus in Taurus will trine Pluto in Capricorn. So a bit of a win maybe at an institutional level for women. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini. So it's going to be in Mercury's territory. On the 28th of June, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces, and the month ends with a bang, with a new moon in Cancer at 7 degrees of Cancer. So folks who have planets in cardinal signs or angles in cardinal signs in their natal chart, so the ascendant, the midheaven, etc. Folks who have planets or angles around 7 degrees are going to feel this the most. This new moon in Cancer is squaring Jupiter in Aries, and Venus in Gemini at the time will sextile Jupiter in Aries. So the month feels very active. I want to call it hyperactive almost. Of course, there's a lot of Gemini energy, especially until the Sun moves into Cancer. It might just feel like everyone's kind of like sharing information, everyone's keen to move forward, everyone's got clarity as to what they believe in, what's important for them, and so on. It also feels like there's a lot of letting go that we're doing this month. Maybe not in a sense that we're breaking ties, we're cutting ties with people this month, but we have probably cut ties with people and with toxic situations in May, and now we're ready to like power forward. So this is the month collectively. Of course, we're going to look into all 12 zodiac signs, but before we do that, let me remind you. Find out your rising sign, find out your ascendant, and listen to the horoscope for the ascendant. My lovelies, if you don't know your time of birth, if you don't know your ascendant, then of course you can listen to the horoscope for your sun sign, but I always recommend listening to the horoscope for the rising sign. My dear Aries, Aries suns and Aries risings, what does June have in store for you? Well, Mars is going to be in your corner for the entire month. So this month you're going to be even more on fire than you normally are. Careful not to burn yourself out. Careful not to rush into things. Careful not to cut yourself. Mars is going to be go, 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 go. Me. Get out of the way. I'm doing things my way. Even more than you normally would. It does feel like you can get a lot done it does feel like you have a lot of clarity as to what you believe in this month. It does feel like you are ready to, how should we say, to demand what you need from the outside world. You may also feel like you're making a lot of movement forward. You're powering forward when it comes to issues connected with your 9th house and with your 12th house. So when it comes to legal matters, legal issues, travel related issues, visa issues, educational issues, maybe also when it comes to matters connected with institutions, which is very much 12th house, it's going to feel very, let's call it, it's going to feel like your month is very adrenaline filled, because it probably will. You have a lot of stamina, you have a lot of passion. The only thing to maybe take into account is that sometimes you might overdo it and you might step on people's toes, just because there's this high degree of urgency that is driving you this month. On the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in your 2nd house, so it may feel like whatever was delayed when it comes to payments, when it comes to finances, resources, etc., it may feel like it is getting unblocked, unstuck. It's moving forward as well. On the 4th of June, however, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 11th house. Now, on a personal level, you feel probably filled with energy and stamina when it comes to you collaborating with others, when it comes to matters connected with your career, with your professional life. It might just feel like other people don't want to move as fast as you want to move. On the contrary, they're like, no, we're just going to stay here for a while. And that's going to last for a good few months. I mean, Saturn is getting out of retrograde. I shall tell you when. On the 23rd of October. So you might feel like you can get a lot done this month by yourself. Maybe not so much when it comes to collaborating with others, and maybe not so much when it comes to collaborating, especially maybe with business partners or with bosses and so on. On the 10th of June, Mercury in Taurus in your 2nd house is trining Pluto in Capricorn in your 10th house. Okay, you seem to be receiving acknowledgement for a job well done. You may also get paid finally after there was some sort of like issue with, I don't know, the payment system, the payroll system from HR or something of that type. You may also feel like you have convinced, like you have persuaded a boss or someone in a leadership position to have your back on something. And it feels really, really good. Mercury also rules your 6th house. So you may also persuade colleagues about one of your initiatives career-wise. But persuading is one thing. Actually getting it done is another thing altogether. It might take a while for things to actually be implemented in the 3D reality. Mercury was also trine Pluto in your 10th house on the 20th of April and on the 25th of May. So look back at what sort of conversations you had with people in positions of power, bosses, leaders at the time, because it may feel like you have scored a very slow but important win around the 10th of June. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus in Taurus in your 2nd house. Maybe a sudden opportunity to make more money. That's certainly a possibility. You could also feel inspired out of the blue to, I don't know, take your partner for like a romantic dinner that is like super lavish and it costs you an arm and a leg and you just don't care because it's treat yourself time. So that's kind of like what I'm sensing here. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 3rd house. So it's like you have your words, you have an even stronger way with words than you've had in the first part of the month, and especially throughout May. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a full moon in Sagittarius in your 9th house, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th, but in a square with Neptune in Pisces in your 12th house. Now, the first recommendation that I have for you is the following. Look back at what was going on in your life when it comes to travel-related matters, visas, residency, education, what was going on in your life around the 4th of December. Legal matters as well, by the way, judicial system, etc., etc. What were you doing at the time in this sector around the 4th of December last year? Because this full moon could bring that sort of like topic to a completion. It could help you solve maybe some sort of issue in that space. Some of you, for instance, might be getting the results for exams. Some of you might be hearing as to whether you are accepted in, I don't know, like a university program or not. Some of you might be handing in final kind of like papers or something like that. It does feel like you're concentrated. It does feel like you're getting good results, but it also feels like there's a bit of a spanner in the works. Maybe if you're taking an exam, exactly what you thought you would not have to prepare, maybe that's also like a topic that comes up. I would say. So it feels like a win educationally, legally. There could be like a culminating moment in a trial. You're like excited because like things are moving forward, but there does seem to be still a bit of an unknown element. I would recommend still reading very carefully through any sort of papers. I would recommend maybe making inquiries as to how the result of this will be put into practice. So I wouldn't just leave it to chance, my dear Aries. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in your first house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in your second house. Okay. This is interesting. So you seem to be triggered by something on this day. You might be reminded of a wound connected with your sense of self, connected with how you assert yourself, and so on. On the other hand, this trigger might actually help you realize how much, maybe feeling like you're not good enough in a certain space, how much this helped you be creative, how much this helped you develop new talents, how much this helped you maybe take an alternative route and find and access potential within you that you would have not otherwise accessed. It's also a day when you may be able to figure out an alternative path to utilize your talents. And you might figure out an alternative path to also move forward with an initiative that is very important for you. So overall, I'm liking it, even though we're talking about Chiron here. Now, on the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your third house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your 11th house and squaring Neptune in Pisces in the 12th. On the one hand, you seem to be very kind of like focused on something mentally, intellectually. You seem to be getting something done. You might be getting something done also together with a group of people, something that took a long time, but there's still something maybe that you felt like you possibly had to compromise in order to reach this stage of completion. It's a very good day for writing things. It's a very good day for presenting projects that you've worked on for a very long time to a wider audience, but also be aware of the fact that there could be questions that put you in a bit of a tight spot. There could be an interest in topics that you did not cover. So I would approach this kind of like carefully, my dear Aries. Now, on the 18th of June, Venus in Taurus in your second house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in your 11th. I mean, it feels like you want to have a good time, you want to spend some money, you want to go out, you want to socialize, and your friends are like, no, we're busy, or we're not available, or we have work to do. So a bit of a frustrating day in that regard. From the 21st of June for the next 4 weeks, roughly, the Sun moves into Cancer in your fourth house of home. So you may feel drawn to spend more time with family, have fun with family, go out with family, dedicate yourself more to family-related matters. Also on the same day, Venus in Taurus in your second house is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 10th house of career. I mean, I'm liking this because it feels like people in power have your back and they support you in whatever it is that you want to do career-wise. You might also get, I don't know, maybe like a new client or some sort of sweet deal. I like it. I like it. I like it. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in your third house. Venus is the ruler of your seventh house and of your second house, my dear Aries. So it feels like if you want to sweet talk people into doing things for you, it's very easy. It's like super easy. Like people just, what's the saying? They eat up your words. They just like, you know? Also, any sort of, let's say, social outings with colleagues, with romantic partners as well, they seem to be very enjoyable, especially in terms of conversation. On the 28th of June, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces in the 12th house, so it does feel like maybe for the next few months. Let's see when Neptune gets out of retrograde. Let's see. So Neptune goes out of retrograde in December. For the next few months, for the rest of the year, actually, it might just feel like there's a bit of a slowing down feeling when it comes to maybe issues connected with the shadow, connected with the subconscious, connected with your mental health, and so on. There might also be a sense of like things slowing down when it comes to anything connected with your spiritual evolutionary path. And on the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in Cancer in your fourth house of home. It is squaring Jupiter and Aries in your first house, but at the same time, Venus in Gemini in your third house is sextiling Jupiter in Aries. Now, Jupiter rules your ninth house, my dear Aries. It also rules your 12th house. I think there might be like some sort of surprise, maybe not necessarily surprise. I think maybe that there is a sense of expansion of your home and family life, maybe the beginning of a new chapter that you did not necessarily expect to happen at this point in time. It might make you feel like this is kind of like stretching how you identify. It's stretching how you see yourself. It's asking you to also reevaluate your plans, maybe travel plans in particular. Maybe this is a time when you plan some sort of like trip with family members and you're feeling like, okay, maybe I should have gone by myself, but alas, I'm gonna go with my family members. It does feel like your home and family life is growing, you're growing with it, but there's this feeling of a stretch of, I'm no longer on my own, I'm no longer the person who I thought I was, I'm more than that. How do I feel about it? Well, you might have mixed feelings about it. You might also feel a little bit tense, a little bit stressed out about having to deal with this sense of growth when it comes to home and family life on your own, but you're not on your own. Ask for the help of partners. Ask for the help of siblings. Ask for the help of the community. You don't have to do it on your own, my dear Aries. Some Aries could maybe relocate, move into a new home. They might be looking at kind of like how they can have a more enjoyable lifestyle, but at the same time, it does feel like a bit of a stretch. It does feel like, okay, so who am I? I'm moving into this like new, like nice neighborhood, and like, do I resonate with these people? And something like that. So that Aries is June for you. My dear Taurus, Taurus suns and Taurus risings. So what does June look like for you? Well, I'm just gonna say it's a lot calmer than May, because in May, the spotlight was very, very, very much on you, and obviously on the opposite sign, on the sign of Scorpio. Your sign and Scorpio, they were both powerfully triggered by the eclipse that happened mid-month. Then part of the Mercury retrograde also happened in your sign. It might have felt super chaotic. It might have also felt like you had to take stock of some of the changes that maybe occurred within yourself and also within your relationships. It definitely feels like May was a month of introspection on a certain level as a result of maybe events that felt fated or outside of your control. Well, I can tell you this. There's a lot more clarity as to where you're headed next in terms of life direction in the month ahead. Mercury goes direct in your sign on the 3rd of June. Mars is in Aries in your 12th house throughout the entirety of the month, together with Jupiter. Now, Mars wants to take action. Jupiter is connected with beliefs. Jupiter for you rules your 8th house and your 11th house. It feels like you're probably going to be doing a lot of cleaning up behind the scenes in June, my dear Taurus. You're going to be doing other things, but there's a lot of cleaning up. Outdated structures, maybe getting rid of old beliefs, maybe getting rid of old fears, maybe facing old fears. That could also be a theme for June, and taking action on that so you get it out of the way. You might also be doing a bit of a cleaning up thing when it comes to your tribe, when it comes to your friends, when it comes to your circle. I dare say this might not necessarily be very visible to the outside world. It might just be something that you prioritize internally. In the outside world, there's one big event taking place. Saturn is going retrograde in Aquarius in your 10th house. So it may feel like some of the pressures or the burdens that were laid upon your shoulders career-wise, it might just feel like they're taking a bit of a backseat, or they may feel a little bit less heavy, I would say, at least until October, when when Saturn goes out of retrograde in your 10th house. It might also feel like some of your long-term plans, career-wise, are slowing down a bit. And now is not necessarily the time to advance, but it's a time to integrate and to realize, what does this mean for me in the long run? This career path, these extra duties, these extra responsibilities. How does this change me? How does it change my worldview? How does it change my belief system? What does it mean for me in terms of life philosophy? So that's maybe something to ask yourself. On the 10th of June, Mercury and Taurus in your 1st house will trine Pluto and Capricorn in your 9th house. This also happened on the 20th of April and on the 25th of May. So around the 10th of June, my dear Taurus, you might get good news, similar in terms of symbolism or archetypally speaking. You might get good news also similar to those that you received around the 20th of April and around the 25th of May. You could have a lot of clarity as to what you truly believe in around the 10th of June. You could also feel maybe inspired to travel to a place that you have been to in the past. You may also feel inspired to maybe learn even more about a topic that you may feel a little bit obsessed with. It's also a great day for exams, to take exams, to hand in papers. You could get good news connected with your education, good news connected with a trial, a legal matter. It feels like you're at peace with this. It feels like this is something that is very transformative. You realize that it impacts your life direction moving forward. You realize that there is no turning back, and you're in harmony with it. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your first house. Okay, so this is interesting. This could bring maybe like a very pleasant surprise coming from a colleague or from work, from a client possibly, maybe from an account that you work on, from a project that you've been working on. You could have someone reaching out to you and saying, let's work together, and it could feel very, very unexpected, but in a good way, in a nice way. This could also be a day when you feel inclined to maybe take some sort of rash, sudden Uranian decision when it comes to your style, when it comes to beauty, when it comes to aesthetic matters. So I don't know, you might go and like cut all your hair, or like go brunette, go blonde, go purple when it comes to your hair color. So it feels like you're restless about your style and your appearance, and you want to try out something new. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your second house. So things finally seem to be moving forward when it comes to payments, when it comes to receiving maybe outstanding payments. There seems to be a lot more clarity around your budget, so it's looking good. And then on the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a full moon in Sagittarius at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, actually, in your 8th house, harmoniously aspecting Saturn and Aquarius in your 10th house, but in a square to Neptune and Pisces in your 11th. Let's see. So I would recommend looking back at what was going on in your life around the 4th of December when it comes to investments, mortgages, insurance, taxes, loans, etc. Because the full moon on the 14th of June could bring a topic that first came to your attention in December. It could bring it to a peak, to an end. You could receive some really good news connected with a mortgage, with a loan. You could receive a bonus from work. You may feel like some sort of crisis is over financially. You could be feeling good, positive about how maybe a division of assets is going. But on the other hand, if you are receiving some money, if you are kind of like waiting for, I don't know, like a positive result when it comes to your mortgage or anything like that, it might be a little bit less than you thought it would be. Nevertheless, it's still good news. Now on the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in your 12th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in your first house. This is a day probably when you become very much aware of one of your blind spots, and some of these, let's say, maybe fears connected with this blind spot might have been holding you back from fully appreciating yourself, fully giving yourself credit for something that you're good at. It feels like maybe someone comes into your life around this day and says, listen, you're wonderful for all of these reasons. And you might also get to appreciate a part of yourself that maybe you berated up until that point, that maybe you were not comfortable with up until that point. On the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your second house is trining Saturn and Aquarius in your 10th house of career and squaring Neptune and Pisces in the 11th. So great news when it comes to money, finances. The Sun for you, my dear Taurus, rules your 4th house. So if you are receiving good news financially, then you might just spend some money on the home. You might buy something nice for the home. It feels like some conversations that you've been having for a long time with someone in a position of power, a client, a boss, a potential boss. It feels like these conversations are yielding results around this day. Now, there could still be some lack of clarity around how exactly things will work in the long run. I would recommend clarifying. I would certainly recommend that. This could also be a day maybe when you book like a business trip, so traveling for business, and you feel excited about it. On the 18th of June, Venus in Taurus in your 1st house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in the 10th house. Now, this is a day when it feels like a boss or someone with authority, someone with power, it feels like they are trying to block you a little bit from I don't know, having a good time. They're messing a little bit with your mood. Maybe not intentionally. I'm not saying that they're doing it because they're mean people, but you're kind of like having a good time. You're celebrating life, you're celebrating yourself, and alas, this person says, "No, like focus on your work," or "You forgot to do this," or "Don't you think that you've been, I don't know, like too kind of like let's say geared towards having a good time, and you've maybe neglected a little bit some of your duties and your responsibilities." Also, someone in a position of power might scold you because you're being too nice about something and maybe not pushy enough. Consider yourselves warned, Taurians. On the 21st of June, the sun moves into Cancer in your 3rd house for the next 4 weeks. So it does feel like it's going to be a very, very socially active period for you, and especially socially active when it comes to getting together with family members, getting together with siblings, maybe traveling short distance to see siblings, and so on. Also on the 21st of June, Venus in Taurus in your 1st house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 9th. So this could be a day literally when you actually travel, and you could travel with a family member. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in your 2nd house. It might just feel like you're a bit of a money magnet throughout this period, more than you generally are. You might also feel inclined, of course, to spend money on nice things for yourself, such as clothes and stuff like that. There could be people reaching out to you throughout this period with some actually very lucrative opportunities for both parties involved to make money, like good money together. So I would watch out for that. Now, on the 28th of June, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces in the 11th house. So until December, it might just feel like your vision for the future is possibly put a little bit on hold. Maybe you're not necessarily feeling like you're making a lot of headway, but you do have kind of like more immediate matters to focus on and to definitely enjoy, such as traveling, connecting with the family, traveling with family, and so on. And on the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a new one in Cancer at 7 degrees in your 3rd house of siblings and communication and short distance travel. And it is squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 12th house. Now, Jupiter for you rules the 11th house and the 8th house. This could be a day of unexpected or out of the shadow, out of the blue, maybe news connected with siblings if you have siblings. And this could also be a day when you feel inspired to maybe join some sort of class, course, study type of situation. Maybe something that allows you to further develop yourself spiritually and from a mental health perspective. You are probably going to feel in the long run, maybe like this course or class is helping you from a self-esteem standpoint. So I would definitely go for it. I would definitely go for it. Enjoy June, my dear Taurians. Now, if you are a Gemini sun or a Gemini rising, what does June look like for you, my dear Geminis? Well. There's a lot still going on in your 12th house. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes still. There might still be some issues to kind of like solve connected with institutions, maybe also connected with, let's see, family members being in an institutional like setup or environment, maybe family members dealing with some mental health related issues. You could be solving things for the family behind the scenes. There could be a family member that is still somehow kind of like suffering, at least until Mercury gets out of your 12th house on the 13th of June. Now Mars is in Aries together with Jupiter in your 11th house for the entirety of the month. Mars for you, Gemini, rules the 11th house. It also rules the 6th house of work and health, and Jupiter rules your 7th house and your 10th house. It feels like together with friends and with colleagues, it feels like you can really achieve some of your long-term goals and objectives. It almost feels like the people that you surround yourself with, especially friends and colleagues, it almost feels like they're an incredibly motivating force for you. They're saying, yeah, go for it. Yeah, do this. It's almost like they want to throw the punches for you, or they're inspiring you to like have more passion and oomph about going after what you want to achieve long term. It might just feel like a lot is moving forward in your life this month. When it comes to group projects, when it comes to work-related matters, when it comes to health-related matters, and it really feels like friends and probably also your partner, they're playing a very important part in this. It feels like there's a lot of action, a lot of animation in terms of work projects that involve you connecting with a wider group of people, maybe even leading a wider group of people. I can only say go full speed ahead for that, and don't be afraid to reach out to, I don't know, like friends, colleagues, collaborators, partners. Don't be afraid to reach out to them and say, listen, can you help with this? Or can you show me the way? Because they're probably going to be able to help and show you the way forward. On the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in your 12th house. At least it feels like there's clarity when it comes to something that's been plaguing you behind the scenes. Maybe like a thought that wasn't letting you sleep. Maybe there was something going on with a family member that was eating you up on the inside. So there's more clarity, but I don't necessarily see the issue being like fully over, at least until Mercury gets out of that part of your chart on the 13th of June. On the 4th of June, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 9th house. So you might need to slow down a little bit your efforts when it comes to higher education, when it comes to legal matters, at least until October. Now, I'm not saying stop them. I'm saying slow down and take stock. On the 10th of June, Mercury in your 12th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 8th house. It does feel like maybe a family member around this date has some good news to give to you. News connected with their suffering, or news connected with something that's been bothering them or hurting them, or something of that type. I like it. It's good. It's good. It's good. And it's maybe news similar to the news that you received around the 28th of April and the 25th of May. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in the 12th house. Now, Venus for you also rules the 5th house. It's almost like you've got a bit of a guardian angel that has your back around this time. So you feel like you're very lucky, and that divinity has your back with something maybe connected with possibly children, or an issue that has been negatively affecting your mental state and mental health. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a full moon in Sagittarius, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in the 9th house in Aquarius, but in a square to Neptune in Pisces in your 10th house. So this could be a time when there's some sort of like culminating moment in your relationship sector, or a culminating moment when it comes to a business partnership. Maybe you are traveling to kind of like seal the deal and sign an agreement that you're entering into a partnership with someone. You might receive, you and your partner, or either of you, but it seems to be good news for both. You might receive some good news of a legal nature. Maybe also something connected with money that was owed to you. Do look back at what was going on in your life, especially in the area of relationships, around the 4th of December, because that's when there was a new moon last year in your 7th house of partnerships. It feels like something that you've been working together with a partner on, business or life partner. It feels like it is reaching a peak. It's something that you're both in a way happy with because you're aligned in terms of mentality, but you might be a little bit reluctant to share this with the outside world because you might feel like the outside world is going to judge you for doing this. So that's something that I'm seeing here. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 11th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 12th house. This feels like a time when you realize what exactly was holding you back, what sort of like inner wound was holding you back from fully going after what you want to achieve in terms of the future. You may become very aware of one of your blind spots. You might also become very aware of someone who's been having your back behind the scenes. 16th of June, the sun in your first house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your 9th house, but it is squaring Neptune in Pisces in the 10th house. So it feels like you're having some really positive conversations, maybe with teachers, with people from abroad, with foreigners. You might be traveling around this time or planning a travel, maybe something that's been on your mind for a long time. You might have your say in kind of like a public sphere. You might also possibly around this time hand in an exam or a final thesis. There's a lot of maybe confusion still as to how this will impact long-term your professional path, but that doesn't mean that you haven't done a good job, I'd say. And sometimes the future just reveals itself later down the line. Now, the sun for you, my dear Geminis, rules your 3rd house. So definitely I would say this can bring good news connected with exams, with classes, courses. You might get accepted on a course. You might get accepted on a class. I'm liking it. You seem to also be very fluent and coherent in your speech on this day. On the 18th of June, Venus and Taurus in your 12th house is squaring Saturn and Aquarius in the 9th. There could be a sense of blockage maybe here in terms of having a good time, in terms of relaxing, in terms of enjoying yourself, in terms of resting, because you do seem to have maybe like a broader issue kind of like still on your mind, and it could be something connected with finances, especially shared assets, shared resources, shared finances, money that you have in common, or money that belongs to both you and maybe a partner. On the 21st of June, the sun moves into Cancer in your 2nd house. So for the next 4 weeks, it may feel like the spotlight is even more on the area of finances for you. Venus and Taurus in your 12th is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 8th house. Good news connected with maybe money that you are waiting from the bank, or good news connected with taxes or inheritance, something like that. It could be a day when you receive a financial gift, the 21st of June. From the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus is in your 1st house. So you're probably going to feel like you can finally breathe and have a good time and enjoy yourself more. On the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in Cancer in your 2nd house of income, squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 11th house. But Venus in your 1st house is sextiling Jupiter in Aries in your 11th house. Now, this could be a day when you receive, a period when you receive the opportunity to make money with a group of people, but you're not necessarily, let's say, 100% sure that you can work very well with this group of people. Maybe you feel like they're bossy, maybe you feel like they're demanding, maybe there's a sense of there being some differences in culture between you and them, but do rely upon your diplomacy, do rely upon your curiosity, your communication skills, because if you ask questions, then what could go wrong? So the worst thing that could happen is, I don't know, like there being a lot of email exchanges between you and these people. It is a time to dream big and to think big in terms of plans for the future financially. You might set a new financial goal, a very ambitious financial goal for yourself around this time. You might be thinking, how am I going to get this done? The answer is you're not going to get it done on your own. You have to reach out to others. And that is June for you. My dear Cancerians, Cancer suns and Cancer risings. So what does June have in store for us, fellow Cancerians? Well, it's going to be a packed month. I will give you that. We are going to be very preoccupied with career-related matters. I mean, if anything, it's really going to feel like there's a lot of energy that we can put into growing our career, into moving forward with our professional endeavors. It might also feel in June like there's a lot of clarity that we have in terms of the belief system that we want to align ourselves with professionally. June can also be a month when we feel inspired to go big professionally, to expand ourselves, to maybe explore new territories, to work with people from maybe different countries. Why? Because Jupiter, the great benefic, is also going to be in our 10th house of career. It feels like we want to take risks. We're inspired to take risks. Career-wise, it feels like we have the courage and the boldness to initiate something, possibly career-wise. I'm liking it. I'm absolutely liking it. It does feel like Cancerians are going to be a little bit like a hurricane from a professional standpoint. Nothing's gonna get in your way. Now, you may also have to assert yourselves in the public sphere, my dear Cancerians, but with Mars in your corner, with Jupiter in your corner, it's like, I know what I believe in, I know I'm right, I know what I want, I'm gonna go get it professionally. So that's what it feels like. On the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in the 11th house, Cancerians. Now, Mercury for you rules your 12th house and your 3rd house. So any sort of conversations that went through a challenging time, any sort of conversations with friends, with collaborators that felt like they weren't getting anywhere. Finally, there's clarity. There's mutual understanding. You might also be feeling mentally unblocked. That's how I would put it, when it comes to where you're headed to next, and also when it comes to how you can achieve some of your long-term goals and objectives, Cancerians. Now, on the 4th of June, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 8th house. It might feel like things are slowing down in terms of possibly some developments that were affecting shared resources, maybe your partner's money, your partner's assets, or assets that you have in common. Things aren't moving as swiftly as they moved in the past. You might also feel like you aren't necessarily making that much progress when it comes to your own kind of like personal transformation and maybe the transformation of your relationship sector when Saturn is retrograde in this part of your chart. Saying that, you're making a lot of progress on all other different fronts, especially career-wise. You're like, boom, like a hand grenade. On the 10th of June, Mercury in your 11th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in your 7th house of relationships. Let's see. Mercury was in a trine to Pluto in your 7th house, also on the 28th of April and on the 25th of May. So whatever you've been doing together with a partner, whatever you agreed on with a partner, business partner, romantic partner, it feels like you're getting it done, you're applying it in the 3D material reality, you're implementing it, and it feels like a success, like a successful collaboration between you and a partner. You could also be very persuasive when it comes to bringing someone with a lot of power on your side on the 10th of June, maybe someone that you've been trying to persuade since April. So it feels like a win, I would say. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your 11th house. So this could be a day when your friends out of nowhere, very impromptu, are saying, let's go out, let's have fun, let's enjoy ourselves. And it could be childhood friends, very much, but you seem to have an amazing time. I love it. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 12th house. So you might kind of like feel inclined to keep your thoughts to yourself, maybe a bit more, to kind of like think about things behind the scenes, kind of like make your strategy behind the scenes. You might also feel inspired to move forward, maybe with some classes, courses, studies connected with the 12th house. So of a spiritual nature, or something that has to do with possibly institutions, how to work with institutions, and so on. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a full moon in Sagittarius in your 6th house of day-to-day work. It's very nicely aspected to Saturn in your 8th house, but it is in a square with Neptune and Pisces in the 9th house. So a few things may happen here. First of all, look back at what was going on work-wise for you and health-wise around the 4th of December, because things could be coming to a close around the 14th of June. This full moon might bring with it a new job offer. It might bring with it the successful completion of a work-related project. You might feel like you've worked very hard to get here, so it felt like a very important job. You might also feel like you've overcome possibly some sort of like health-related issue. Saying that, if you do receive a job, if you do say yes to a job, if you do wrap something up work-wise, I would strongly recommend maybe reading the contracts once again, or reading the going through the legal aspect of things once again, because there could be some clauses maybe that you did not tick potentially. Also around this time, it does feel like you need to work, and maybe some of your travel related plans aren't necessarily playing out exactly as you thought they would. If you do need to work, it's probably going to be something that you do very well. So I see great results, but that doesn't mean that you might not be maybe a little bit frustrated, because maybe you thought you would be on a beach lying somewhere with like a cocktail in your hand, potentially. So just so you know, on the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in your 12th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in your 11th house. This could be a time when you realize how something that maybe you felt was holding you back in the past, career-wise, how you can use that to your advantage, and how much it has actually helped you maybe think differently, think in an out-of-the-box manner. It could also be a day when it feels like you have some sort of like fated encounter with someone who can help you fulfill your long-term goals and plans. On the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your 12th house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your 8th house. Okay, so you could be receiving a surprise payment around this time. You could also be feeling like you've got a lot more clarity on what caused some sort of like inner sense of crisis for you in the past. So it's almost like a time of understanding of, okay, I get it, I get where it came from, and I'm letting it go. On the 18th of June, Venus in Taurus in your 11th house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in your 8th house, so it might feel like financial matters, financial obligations, maybe obligations connected with like a mortgage, a loan, or financial obligations towards a business partner. Maybe it feels like these are interfering with your, I don't know, like ability to have fun with your friends and just go party. Just putting it out there. It might also feel like some sort of group activity is costing a lot. On the 21st of June, the Sun moves into Cancer in your 1st house for the next month or so. The spotlight is on you, and you feel like $1,000,000. It might just feel like you need to get out of hiding almost. It's like everyone wants to learn more about you. Everyone wants to know what you've been up to, what you've been doing. So you may feel very much like, okay, I'm center stage. Also on the 21st of June, Venus in your 11th house is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 7th. Oh, I love this. This is a great day for like a romantic dinner. It's a great day to make plans for the future with a partner. It's a great day to enjoy sensual pleasures together with a partner. It's a great day to maybe be introduced by friends to a potential partner if you're single. So I'd say get out of the house. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in your 12th house, so you might enjoy more kind of like intellectual activities behind the scenes throughout this period. And on the 29th of June, there's a new moon in Cancer in your 1st house, 3 days before, 3 days after. It's squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 10th house, and Venus in Gemini in the 12th is harmoniously aspecting Jupiter in Aries in the 10th house. It feels like this is a new beginning for you, career-wise, professionally. It feels like you're going through a rebrand. It also feels like what's happening career-wise is kind of like asking you to stretch the definition of yourself, or maybe how you thought of yourself up until this point, I would say, my dear Cancerians. This could be a time when you really start actively working with someone from a different country, and you need to learn more about their culture, about their cultural conditioning, maybe cultural nuances. It's almost like you've attracted this collaboration or this project or this opportunity in your life. Intuitively, it feels good. It's like, yes, I wanted this. But on the other hand, there could be a little bit of like inner panic. It's like, oh, am I really doing this? Is everyone going to be watching me? Yes, they are, Cancerians. And that is June for you. Now, my dear Leos, Leo suns and Leo risings, what does June have in store for you? Well, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in your 9th house of long distance travel and education, your 10th house of career, and your 11th house of long-term goals and plans for the future, especially in the first part of the month, at least until the 21st of June when the sun moves into Cancer in your 12th house. So this month, Mars is in Aries in your 9th house. Jupiter is in Aries in your 9th house. Jupiter for you, my dear Leos, rules your 5th house and your 8th house. It feels like you're putting a lot of energy into your studies, you're putting a lot of energy into travels, maybe putting a lot of energy also into cultural activities. It feels like you're ready to act, to take action upon your beliefs, upon your personal life philosophy. You've got a lot of clarity on that front. You may feel inspired to, join a new course, a new class, apply for like a master's, apply for a PhD, maybe also talk about your thesis, promote your thesis in a public setup, in an academic setup. I'd also say that it is a month in which you are very likely to travel, especially long distance, and to move forward with travel related matters. So I'm thinking here of like visas for instance. Now on the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in your 10th house of career. Any sort of like miscommunications, misunderstandings with bosses, with people in positions of authority, they seem to be dissolving, and it seems like things are a lot clearer now in this space. Mercury for you rules also your 2nd house and your 11th house. It may feel like you're finally agreeing upon maybe a financial matter with a boss, a leader, or someone who has the power to pay you for the services that you're offering. On the 4th of June, until October actually, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 7th house. So it's almost like the pressure, the burden that you are carrying on your shoulders, connected with your relationship sector, it's kind of like taking a bit of a back seat maybe. It feels like it's less of a pressure, or it feels like, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's just the way life is. It doesn't necessarily feel like maybe you're getting a lot of work done together with a partner, I'd say. Now, on the 10th of June, Mercury in your 10th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in your 6th house of day-to-day work. My dear Leos, this is great news. It feels like you have convinced someone, you've persuaded someone professionally. It feels like you're presenting something very successfully to a boss. You've worked together really well with a team. Things are flowing in your work environment. You might be receiving some new opportunities work-wise. It might feel like something that's been on your mind work-wise since April is finally playing out in the way that you want it to play out. I'm very much liking this day. It could also be good news connected with your health. And because you're getting good news connected with your health, you're kind of like able to focus on matters connected with your professional life and no longer have to worry about health, my dear Leos, around this time. Now, on the 11th of June, there could be a very out of the blue, very sudden, very unexpected opportunity that comes your way professionally, from maybe a colleague, someone that you worked with in the past, someone in the local community. It's like, oh, this came out of nowhere. So I'd say this is also a really, really sweet day. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 11th house. So it might feel, if you had any sort of like misunderstandings with friends, or if you were kind of like maybe feeling like someone was a bit distant, it does feel like you can get on the same page from the 13th of June onwards. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, my dear Leos, there is a full moon in Sagittarius in your 5th house. It's triggering your 5th house, 11th house axis, so the axis of friends and enjoyment. It is probably going to be a time when you get together with friends, when you have a good time with friends, when you can celebrate something with a group of people, maybe something that you've worked very hard together with your friends or with a group of people, with a team to achieve. This could also be a time when it feels like you have achieved something together with your partner, maybe something that involved children, I'd say, or something that involved maybe education. However, there is still a little bit of lack of clarity as to how the financial aspect of this issue will be taken care of, because this full moon is in a square to Neptune in the 8th house. Also, someone still seems to feel a little bit like the victim here, maybe, or feel like they had to sacrifice themselves in order for this culminating moment to be reached. You could be fulfilling one of your long-term goals or objectives. Also, when it comes to a creative project at this point in time, you could be presenting a creative project, again, a collaborative one, to a wider audience. You seem to be very anxious about it, but it does seem to be received well overall. Around the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 9th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 10th house. It feels like something that maybe you felt like you could not assert yourself on in terms of your life philosophy, in terms of belief systems. It feels like you finally have clarity as to how you can say, this is what I believe in, and how you can kind of like push that onto the world around you and maybe tell them, you can't cross this boundary, you can't cross this line. This could also be a day when you have a very kind of like fated encounter, maybe with someone who will have some sort of impact upon your career path moving forward. Now, on the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your 11th house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in the 7th house of relationships and squaring Neptune and Pisces in the 8th house. It feels like you're reaching some sort of compromise with a partner. It does feel like they're willing to kind of like pull their weight, carry their weight, pull their weight. I don't know exactly what the saying is, how the saying goes. It feels like you're both in alignment when it comes to putting an effort into achieving something that matters for the two of you. Again, there could be some fuzziness around the financial aspect of things, so I would recommend clarifying that. You could possibly also sign some sort of agreement business-wise around the 16th of June. Again, do get maybe like an expert to go over the contract and to see whether there are any hidden clauses or not. On the 18th of June, Venus and Taurus in your 10th house is squaring Saturn and Aquarius in the 7th house. It feels maybe like a day when a partner, a business partner, or a romantic partner is raining a little bit on your parade professionally, so you're having a great time professionally. Things are moving in your direction in a positive manner, and alas, a partner is like, no, what about me? It almost feels like, even if they don't want to be a bit of a burden, they do feel like a bit of a burden around this time. On the 21st of June, the Sun moves into Cancer in your 12th house for the next month. It illuminates your mental health, your subconscious, your shadow. And Venus in Taurus in the 10th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in your 6th house. It almost feels like this is a day to have faith that the universe has your back, and that there are people out there who want to help you, who want to facilitate things for you work-wise. You might feel like you can finally catch your breath when it comes to a health-related matter as well. Very successful collaboration with work colleagues around this date. On the 23rd of June, Venus moves into Gemini until the 18th of July. Now, for you, my dear Leos, Venus rules your 10th house and your 3rd house. This is probably going to be a super, super pleasant, a really fun time with friends. So I'd say go out, get together with friends, say yes to invitations, have a good time. You absolutely deserve it. And whilst you're at it, you might also network with some really cool people that can bring in the future opportunities for you career-wise. So you can kind of like shoot two birds with one stone, knock out two birds with one stone, whatever that is. On the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in Cancer in your 12th house. It's squaring Jupiter and Aries in the 9th house. However, Venus at the time is in a sextile to Jupiter and Aries in the 9th house. It feels like this is a time maybe when you decide to approach your mental health a little bit differently, to also maybe explore further your shadow in a manner that feels foreign, in a manner that feels different. So you may feel inspired to try out, let's say, a new kind of like spiritual practice. I don't know. Hypnosis, for instance, EFT, something like that. But it does seem to be maybe a little bit in disagreement with what you believed in up until this point. Philosophically speaking, or even religiously speaking. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it out, because it's going to kind of like stretch you a little bit, and maybe, just maybe, it's going to make you feel a lot more connected with your higher self, and a lot more connected with the mystical and with the divine. And doing this together, so exploring maybe this practice, mental health, spiritual practice, together with friends or with a group of people, this seems to offer a lot of peace of mind and also a lot of confidence, my dear Leos. So I would definitely say go for it. My dear Virgos, Virgo suns and Virgo risings, what does June look like for you? Well, you're going to be happy to hear that Mercury goes out of retrograde, and Mercury is your chart ruler. So alas, it might just feel like the lack of clarity mentally, the misunderstandings, the things getting lost in translation, those are all going away out of your life, especially when it comes to you feeling misunderstood, and also when it comes to career related matters. So Mercury goes out of retrograde on the 3rd of June. And it goes back into your 10th house of career on the 13th of June. So it might just feel like some of the conversations that were started in May but didn't get anywhere career-wise, it may feel like you can pick those back up, especially from the 13th of June onwards. And finally, they're getting somewhere. They're successful, maybe even as early as the 14th of June, a few days before, a few days after, but especially a few days after, when there's a full moon triggering your 10th house of career and your 4th house of home. It's a time of culmination, of something coming to a close, of something reaching its peak. This full moon is very nicely aspected to Saturn in Aquarius in your 6th house of day-to-day work. So it very much feels like you're completing a probably career-related chapter, something that you've worked very hard for. It might also feel like, let's say, something that was happening at home maybe, and that was holding you back from fully prioritizing your career, that's getting out of the way as well. If a family member had any sort of health-related issues, it does feel like that's coming to an end also around the 14th of June. You might also have some really positive news to share with the outside world when it comes to your home life around the 14th of June. There is a tense aspect from this full moon to Neptune and Pisces in your 7th house. So I would recommend, before you make some sort of announcement to the outside world, I would recommend maybe checking in with a partner and asking them, how do you feel about this? Are you comfortable with this? Are you unsure about it? This could be a time maybe when you're ready to move into a new home, you're ready to leave a home behind. It could also be a time, I would say, in which you feel like you have completed something that you put a lot of effort into, maybe for a parent. Now, the thing is, a partner might have felt neglected as a result of this, so maybe it's worth talking to them. But in addition to this, in addition to all this mercurial stuff going on in June, my dear Virgos, Mars this month is going to be in Aries in your 8th house along with Jupiter. Now, Mars really packs a punch. It's like go, 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 go. Jupiter is the ruler of your 4th house of home and of your 7th house of relationships. I do feel that probably maybe you're going to secure a mortgage with a partner, or you're going to move into a new house with a partner, or you're somehow moving forward with some sort of project connected with your home life, family life, and living situation. You're moving forward with it. It's a joint project. It's something that involves a partner. Now, it could be a life partner or your romantic partner. It could also be maybe something that involves land, property, or real estate, and you need to team up, let's say, with, I don't know, like an institution. Maybe you need to ask for money from someone else. I want to say this. If you need money from anyone else, if you need money from the bank, if you need money from an institution, do kind of like push forward for that, especially in June, and especially from the 3rd of June onwards, once Mercury gets out of retrograde. June can also be a month when it feels like you are spending a lot of money with a partner. For home-related matters. So if you're moving into a new house, if you're relocating, if you're buying a property or anything like that, of course, that's going to cost. Your partner might be feeling a bit lost. So again, maybe it's worth checking in with them. You may also feel like you've got the energy in June to tackle an issue that was maybe sensitive between you and a partner. So if you've got the energy to do it, I say do it. Nothing is getting in the way. On the 4th of June, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 6th house of day-to-day work. So maybe it feels like you need to kind of like go back over some of the work-related projects that you initiated in the first part of the year, pretty much until October. Maybe it's not necessarily time for new projects, but it is a good time to revisit, review, and maybe wrap up older projects work-wise. On the 10th of June, something is going to happen that also happened on the 20th of April and on the 25th of May. So Mercury in your 9th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 5th house. This could be a day of good news from an educational standpoint. It could be a day when you feel aligned with a romantic partner from a mentality perspective, especially on topics that involve traveling and maybe also that involve children. It could also be a very fulfilling time from a cultural standpoint. So you might go out to to the opera, to the theater, and really enjoy it and feel inspired and have this sort of like aha moment of like, yes, I get it. How does this all come together? This is so exciting. So I'm liking it from that standpoint. Let's see, on the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your 9th house, my dear Virgos. So you could very suddenly be inspired to spend money on an impromptu trip or spend money on a course, or maybe kind of like all of a sudden take your partner out, take them out to, like the theater, the opera, take them out to the museum, and it could feel very kind of like exciting. I'm like, folks, you can tell that I'm a moon in Capricorn. Like I just said that a day at the museum is exciting. Okay, moving on from that. On the 15th of June, Mars will conjunct Chiron and Aries in your 8th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node and Taurus in the 9th house. This feels like a day when you could have some sort of fated encounter. It might feel like a fated encounter with someone that opens up the possibility for you to kind of like make sense of reality in a new way. You could have like a very inspiring encounter from a spiritual standpoint. You could connect with someone that kind of like gets you thinking, and you might be looking back and thinking, maybe my perspective has been quite narrow. Maybe I need to look at it a little bit differently. On the other hand, you could also become aware of how one of the topics that maybe you consider to be taboo, how they were holding you back from going after what you want on this day. 16th of June, really good day. The Sun in Gemini in your 10th house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your 6th house. It feels like you have overcome some sort of battle or struggle work-wise. You seem to be very convincing, very persuasive when it comes to your colleagues, when it comes to bosses on this day. You could be presenting publicly maybe a project that you worked on together with a group of people. Now, again, I strongly recommend making sure that everyone feels included when it comes to the presentation. Maybe make sure that they don't feel like you've hogged the floor, I think is what they say. 18th of June, Venus and Taurus in your 9th house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in the 6th house. So you might want to continue to enjoy maybe, I don't know, your days out, getting involved in like cultural activities, making plans to travel. But this seems to be a day when duty calls. And not just duty, you may need to slow down a little bit with the plans to travel maybe, just because there is like possibly a health-related issue or a work-related issue that requires your attention. I don't think it's something very new. It's probably something that you already know about, but it's like, okay, this is getting in the way. That's maybe the frustrating bit. On the 21st of June for the next month, the Sun moves into Cancer in your 11th house. So a very, very social time, getting together with friends and so on. You may feel kind of like also inspired to think about the future, where you're headed to next. Venus on the 21st of June is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 5th house. A very beautiful day to go out for a date, to also talk about the big picture of life with a romantic partner. You might also feel very inspired on this day and get a lot done in the creative realm, in the creative space. And there could be a muse in your life that kind of like gives you that inspiration. 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in your 10th house. Whatever you need to ask from bosses, from leaders, ask for it. It feels like a very enjoyable period career-wise. You're proud of yourself. You enjoy connecting with people. You're probably going to enjoy networking in a professional environment. You're probably going to feel appreciated. So I like it. It could also be a period of time maybe when you need to travel for business. So from the 23rd of June until the 18th of July. If you don't need to travel, then you may need to kind of like collaborate with maybe a team from a different country, something along those lines. On the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a new moon in Cancer in your 11th house, squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 8th house of shared resources and crisis and transformation. And Venus in Gemini in your 10th house of career is sextiling Jupiter in Aries in the 8th house. So this is very interesting. It feels like you are ready to set a new goal for yourself around this time. It feels like you need someone else's financial input around this time. It feels like maybe the goal involves possibly something to do with family, home, real estate, land, these kind of topics. But you can't do it on your own. You need your partner to say yes. Saying that, Venus in Gemini will harmoniously aspect Jupiter in your 8th house. If you need to do some sort of convince a romantic partner, convince someone to kind of like give you some money, you have your words with you. I will just say this. It could also feel like a time when maybe you realize that you're going to have to travel more, and the professional Virgo is super excited about this. It's like, yeah, this is great. New opportunities, etc., etc. On the other hand, you might feel a little bit like you're asked to stretch yourself and also maybe face some of your fears or act in a manner that doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. So for you to be more direct, more assertive, more blunt, especially if you're going to have to travel for work and you're going to have to deal with people from different cultures. So you're really going to have to be out there in kind of like in their face. But I don't know, like part of you is excited about it. Part of you feels uncomfortable about it. I mean, we only grow when we're uncomfortable, right? I'm sorry, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So I will just say, go for it, Virgos. Now, if you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, my lovely, lovely, lovely Libras, this month, maybe more than in general, this month it feels like your partner and those who you are in a partnership with, in a relationship with, it feels like they're on fire. And they're kind of like, go, 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 go. So they just want to move forward. They have a lot of plans. They bring a lot of excitement. With that Mars and that Jupiter in your 7th house of relationships. Jupiter also rules your 3rd house and your 6th house. It feels like some of the initiatives that partners bring into your life, they're actually kind of like bringing more work to your table. So that could get you a little bit annoyed with them, The thing is, if you're not okay with any of these things, it is important that you speak about it, because otherwise it might feel like partners are very demanding this month, very demanding, more than they normally are. You may be happy, part of you might be happy to take someone else's lead, but part of you might also feel like you're kind of like constantly busy for the sake of others this month. On the other hand, it's a very exciting month in terms of like passion and intimacy and sex and so on. So it might just feel like your partner's libido is like through the roof. So yeah, that could be fun. On the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in your 8th house. Alas, the 8th house of sex. So if there were any kind of like things that weren't maybe functioning, I don't know, the way that you wanted them to function, if maybe you weren't exactly on the same page when it came to that area of your life, it's like, yeah, the sky is clear, the coast is clear. We can talk about it openly and freely. If there were any delays, my dear Libras, in terms of you receiving a mortgage or you receiving a loan, or if there were any sort of like issues with taxes, with inheritance, things are getting unstuck most likely from the 3rd of June onwards. So that's great. Saturn on the 4th of June goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 5th house. So it might feel like things are moving possibly a bit slower when it comes to creative projects until October at least. Slower doesn't mean that they're not going anywhere, it just means slower. On the 10th of June, Mercury in your 8th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 4th house. Libras, for you, Mercury rules your 9th house and your 12th house. This could be a day of good news connected with your family's finances or financial situation, maybe also with your partner's finances. Maybe a partner receives like a bonus or a lump sum of money. You could be receiving a bonus or a lump sum of money, and you're directing that towards the home. You could be receiving the green light when it comes to a mortgage. You could be cashing in on some sort of investment, and maybe it felt like something that you weren't sure you were able to cash in, and now it finally happened. You seem to be alleviating some sort of crisis in the home with money, I think, and you seem to have that money, which is very, very good. You might also have a very important conversation with a family member on this day and give them peace of mind. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your 8th house. Now, this could bring out of the blue a gift, a financial gift. It could also bring an unexpected opportunity for investment. I want to flag this. Of course, Venus is very strong in Taurus, so it's in domicile, so it could be a solid opportunity for investment. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor. You are completely responsible for all the decisions that you take regarding your money. It's like, that's on you, Libras. But there could be something out of the blue coming up, so I would be keeping my eyes peeled, maybe, and you can decide what you do with it as the opportunity arises. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your ninth house. So your mind is once again geared towards maybe making sense of all the things that have been happening behind the scenes, maybe in the area of like intimacy, in the area of shared resources, shared assets. You seem to feel like you're out of a period of like crisis maybe in these sectors. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a full moon in Sagittarius in your third house. It's actually triggering the third house, ninth house axis, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in the fifth house. But it's in a square with Neptune and Pisces in your sixth house. Okay, so a few things. First of all, look back at what was going on when it comes to your education, when it comes to a sale, when it comes to maybe a sibling also. What was going on in your life around the 4th of December? Because that's when you had a new moon in this part of your chart. So this full moon might be bringing things to a close. You could be receiving results for an exam, results connected with your education. You could be taking an exam. I see a good result, but also I see you having more work left to do. So don't rest on your laurels. That's my recommendation. You could be traveling for business around this time. It's almost like a business trip could be very enjoyable, but work gets in the way. So it's all fun and games and good and great for networking and for connecting with colleagues, but it's like, oh, the work needs to be done as well. Darn. So that could be happening as well. You could be making a sale or a purchase. It could be something connected with your creative projects. It could be also a car. It could be some sort of like technological device. Again, maybe that allows you to express yourself creatively. But it also feels maybe like you have to maybe work hard to pay it in full or something like that. It might make you feel like there's extra pressure on you to do the work because this was like a very costly purchase. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 7th house. This could be a day when your partner reveals one of their wounds. They reveal one of their triggers. Now, they could reveal that to you by being very angry with you. Don't take it personally. It's not you. I would say it's not them either. It's probably something that they're carrying with them as some sort of wound, and they feel maybe compelled to lash out. Well, also on this day, Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 8th house. Treating them with kindness and love and compassion is probably going to help them calm down and also open up about this sort of wound. 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in the 9th house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in the 5th house. If you're promoting anything creative to a wider audience, if you're marketing it, if you're running a marketing campaign, also if you're completing a creative project or anything that involved your education, you seem to be completing it successfully and you seem to be having really good ideas. Now remember that on this day, on the 16th of June, there's also a square from the Sun to Neptune and Pisces in the 6th house. It would be a good idea, if you want to wrap something up educationally, creatively, it would be a good idea to maybe ask a friend or ask a colleague, what do they think? How would they maybe restructure it? How would they reorganize it? Is there enough kind of like clarity in terms of the steps or like structure or architecture of how this is laid out? So don't be afraid to talk about it. You don't have to figure it out on your own. On the 18th of June, Venus in your 8th house in Taurus is squaring Saturn and Aquarius in the 5th. So you might feel like maybe a partner, a romantic partner or a business partner, you might feel like they are being like too generous or maybe too careless with their money, and you're like, I denied these pleasures to myself and now you're throwing money out the window. So you could feel a little bit personally attacked. It's a day when there might be some things that you need to discuss, some topics that you need to discuss. If you really want to build a strong relationship, there might be some topics that you need to discuss about maybe your childhood or your partner's childhood. So that could be a little bit unpleasant, but in the long run, it's probably very useful. And on the 21st of June, the sun moves into Cancer in your 10th house. So for the next month, your focus is probably going to be very much on your career. It may feel like you're much more in the spotlight. People are maybe asking, inquiring about what you're doing next professionally, what's going on professionally in your life. Also on the 21st of June, Venus in Taurus in your 8th house is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 4th house. Oh my God, I love this. So behind the scenes, at home, there's some very kind of like steamy moments. There's a lot of enjoyment of sensual pleasures. This is also a great day to maybe kind of like decorate the house, redecorate the house, purchase beautiful things for the house. It's feeling like a very luxurious day in the home. You might decide to treat your family with something on this day. Maybe buy them dinner or take them out or something like that. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in your 9th house. So you're like very much focused on making plans to travel. Traveling could be very enjoyable throughout this period, especially traveling for pleasure. You could be learning a lot about yourself also, about like what makes you feel special, what makes you feel appreciated. You could feel inspired maybe to enroll upon some sort of course for your own self-growth and self-development. And it does seem to have a positive impact upon your self-esteem, my dear Libras. On the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in Cancer in your 10th house. So some Libras might be offered a promotion. Some Libras might get a new job, but it's kind of like a rise, a climb on the ladder. So it's not a lateral move. This new moon is squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 7th house. Now, this is interesting. You may feel like you need to step it up career-wise if you really want to get this job done, and if you really want to nail it. It's like you got to be more assertive, you got to be more in people's faces, you got to speak more plainly and openly and demand more assertively what it is that you need from others. Venus and Gemini in your 9th house at the time is sextiling Jupiter and Aries in the 7th house. So, when you are direct about what you want, what you need from others, people seem to cooperate and collaborate with you. So even though you might be feeling a little bit anxious about this new role, this new position, you could be more in the spotlight with this new role. Maybe you could collaborate with someone from abroad or with a team from abroad. That's why it is so important to be to the point and to call things by their name. But people seem to respond super well to this. So I'm definitely liking it. This could also be a time when you announce to the world that there's maybe a change of status in your relationship sector. What does that mean? So from single, you go to being in a relationship. From engaged, you go to announcing that you've set a date for the wedding. So that's what I mean by change in status. Some people ask me, okay, Rux, I have no career. I obviously tend to disagree with that, because even like being a mom, being like a full-time parent, maybe it's not a career in the eyes of, I don't know, like the corporate world, but that is literally how you have contributed and how you contribute to society. So if some people are saying, oh, I'm not in work, I don't have like a regular traditional career, I say you may start fulfilling a new role around the 29th of June for society, for the community. Maybe you are gonna get more kind of like involved in some sort of educational matter. Maybe you feel inspired to teach people something. Maybe you feel inspired to spend more time out in the spotlight, in the limelight. It doesn't all have to be about career, but I would also challenge people to think a little bit out of the box when it comes to the word career, because career is not just, I would think of vocation maybe, because we tend to think about career as, oh, I've got this job or I run this business and that's it. So think about your vocation. There could be more clarity around your vocation and maybe a sense of new beginning around your vocation around the 29th of June, my dear Libras. And that is June for you. My dear Scorpios, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings, what does June have in store for you? Well, I will tell you, there is a lot of work for you to do. I kid you not, you're going to be very busy, but you're also going to get a lot done. You're probably also going to be very physically active, so putting a lot of energy into taking care of your health. You might also be open to trying out some new things and maybe exploring further some new initiatives, some new habits, some new practices health-wise, with Mars and Jupiter both in Aries in your 6th house this month. If you're gonna have a lot on your plate work-wise, which I do believe is gonna be the case, you're probably gonna feel like there's so much that you can get done by yourself. On your own. So you're like, all systems go by yourself. You're probably going to enjoy a lot getting things done on your own, since Jupiter, by the way, is also the ruler of your 5th house. You may feel inspired this month to reach out to new people, to maybe expand in terms of work, maybe towards like an international audience or something like that. There is a possibility that you could also travel for work this month. In any case, there's a lot on your plate. So full plate. There's also a lot going on in your relationship sector. So obviously there were 2 eclipses that activated your relationship sector in April and in May. Mercury goes direct in your 7th house of relationships on the 3rd of June. So there was chaos relationship-wise. There were kind of like sudden endings, beginnings. Maybe there was a sense of like disruption relationship-wise. Maybe there was someone new coming into your life. Maybe someone was eclipsed out of your life. Maybe like an old business partner, or you decided to no longer be with someone romantically. From the 3rd of June onwards, Mercury, which is also the ruler of your 11th house of long-term plans, as it goes direct, you might finally be able to see kind of like what the future holds. You might be able to define, finally, what your future will look like relationship-wise, who you want to keep in your life, who you want to get rid of, misunderstandings, miscommunication, things getting lost in translation with partners. They may take a positive turn, or you may finally pick back up where you left off. A conversation with a partner. It could be a business partner. It could be a romantic partner. It just feels like there was probably a lot of inwards looking for you to do as Mercury was retrograde. When it came to where you want to go or how you want to proceed, how you want to move forward with a very important relationship in your life. Now, you might also decide finally to, I don't know, announce your accountant that you will no longer work with them or something of that type. You may also feel like finally you found someone from the 3rd of June onwards. It's almost like the coast is clear. So you may feel like it's easier to find a consultant, an accountant, a therapist, a lawyer, etc. because the 7th house is also connected with consultants in our chart. Saturn goes retrograde on the 4th of June in your 4th house in Aquarius. So some of the long-term efforts maybe that you've been making in the area of real estate, property, family, and home, some of the efforts that you've been making, it feels like things are slowing down even further. Maybe it feels like you don't know exactly how they're going to play out to these efforts, this work that you've been putting in this part of your life. You might not know exactly how things will move forward, but that's okay. Sometimes it's just time to rest, to take stock, to maybe reevaluate existing structures in this part of your life, to maybe do a little bit of cleanup. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, my dear Scorpio. On the 10th of June, Mercury will be in Taurus in your 7th house and trine Pluto and Capricorn in the 3rd house. So finally, it feels like you're aligned with a partner. You feel like you're getting somewhere with a conversation that may have felt very tricky, a conversation that involves some sort of action in the 3D, some sort of initiative in the 3D material reality. It could have been a conversation around money. around shared resources, and it finally feels like you're on the same page. You could also be signing a very important deal with a consultant or a business partner around this time, and maybe it's something that went kind of like back and forth, and now it's crystallizing. So you seem to be satisfied with this. You could also have a one-to-one maybe with a sibling if you have siblings, and feel like you finally overcome maybe an issue that was feeling maybe a little bit taboo for both of you, and you've had an open conversation about it, and now the relationship is in a much better place. On the 11th of June, there could be some sort of surprise making its way to you from a partner. Now, if you're single, then you could unexpectedly feel like you've got chemistry with someone. If you're already with someone, then the partner could surprise you with, I don't know, like an impromptu dinner, or they may show you a side of theirs that you are not aware of. They may show you how much they have changed. You might be taken aback, but also in a pleasant way, I'd say. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 8th house. So conversations around shared resources, other people's money are flowing a lot more easily. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there is a full moon in Sagittarius, activating your financial axis. It's in a harmonious aspect to Saturn in your 4th house in Aquarius, but in a square to Neptune and Pisces in the 5th house. So you might be agreeing with a partner that you want to spend money together on big ticket items such as a house or a property, or you might agree to spend money on, I don't know, like renovating the house. You might agree to maybe together pooling your resources to help a parent, your parent, a partner's parent. You might also feel ready to pay a debt around this time and feel like a burden is being lifted off your shoulders. You might complete a payment towards a house, something like that. You might clear out your credit card, so you're kind of like paying it in full, and it feels like something that's giving you a lot of peace of mind in your private life. However, you do seem to be called to make a payment around this time, and that could be interfering a little bit with maybe some more enjoyable activities that you had in mind. My other recommendation, Scorpios, is to look back at what was going on financially for you in your life around the 4th of December last year, when you had a new moon in your 2nd house in Sagittarius. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 6th house. An old wound could be activated, a wound that you've been carrying with you. Health-wise, you may feel inflamed somehow. You might also have a terrible migraine on this day. I hate to say it because Aries is connected with the head. The thing is, this is a very inflammatory day. It's like an old wound is being inflamed, but our body is sending messages to us. Are you holding on to your anger? Are you not sharing it? Are you not taking action? Are you keeping yourself from taking action? Are you keeping yourself from asserting yourself? Because you are, if you are, then the body might react and might turn that sort of like energy that should be directed outwards. It might turn it inwards. It might turn it against you. It may also feel like this is a day when you figure out a new way to deal with some sort of health-related issue, or also to deal with an area or a topic at work that made you feel like you just couldn't be open, you just couldn't be direct, you just couldn't be candid. On the 15th of June, Venus is also conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 7th house. This feels like a very fated day in terms of where your relationship sector is going. For those of you who are single, you could have what feels like a predestined encounter. You could also have an epiphany as to what really works for you in the long run, relationship-wise, my dear Scorpios. On the 16th of June, the Sun in your 8th house in Gemini is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your 4th house. So it feels like together with like a family member or a partner, you're on the same page in terms of how some money should be spent. It feels like also, let's see, It feels like this is a day when you recognize the fact that you need to share with the outside world something that's been going on behind the scenes in your home and family life. So that's certainly a possibility. On the 18th of June, Venus and Taurus in your 7th house is squaring Saturn and Aquarius in the 4th house. This is a day when it might not feel like you're on the same page with a partner when it comes to a living situation issue. Also, there could be a sense of you not being able to enjoy your relationship sector because of, I don't know, a parent having some sort of need for you to fix something for them, or to take care of something for them, or to carry some sort of like burden or responsibility for them. On the 21st of June, for the next month, the sun moves into Cancer in your 9th house. I'm liking it. I'm liking this. The spotlight is being placed on travel related issues, on broadening your horizons, on cultural matters, on maybe sharing your worldviews with the outside world. And especially on the 21st of June, Venus and Taurus in your 7th house is trining Pluto in Capricorn in the 3rd house. This could be a great day to go on a date. It's a great day to have some very deep conversations with a partner, to have some deep conversations about the meaning of life, about what you believe in, about what they believe in. You could also talk about some very like touchy topics, but in a manner that feels very pleasant, in a manner that feels like, okay, the relationship is strengthening. On the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves into Gemini in the 8th house. Now, this is great for your sex life. Just saying. It might make it a lot more enjoyable than it normally is. It's also generally a good time for receiving financial gifts from others, receiving returns on investment, maybe quite unexpectedly. There could be some opportunities for investments coming up. Of course, I would act with caution, but at the same time, I would also keep an open mind. It may feel easier to deal with issues connected with your psyche, connected with crises in your life. It may feel a lot easier. You may feel like you're actually deriving some sort of like joy and pleasure from dealing with this from the 23rd of June until the 18th of July. On the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in your 9th house. My dear Scorpios, you might decide to I don't know, like go for a master's degree or join some sort of academic institution, start studying with a teacher, a guru, a mentor. This feels like a new beginning for you when it comes to matters connected with work that involve traveling or working with people from a different culture. You may feel like the spotlight is being placed for you, especially career-wise, because the sun rules your 10th house of career. You may feel like the spotlight is being placed for you on getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of what you know, getting out of your daily kind of like habits and rituals and routines, and thinking differently, putting things into perspective, maybe also looking at your day-to-day through the lens of a different culture that you don't know yet a lot about. Now, the great news is that Venus at the time of this new moon in your 8th house of psychological transformation is harmoniously aspecting Jupiter in Aries in your 6th house. So it's going to be worth it, even financially for you, to learn more about this new culture, to also maybe introduce some new habits, maybe borrowed from a different culture into your day-to-day work. It's probably going to be very lucrative for you to work with people from abroad, maybe to even consider traveling for work. Also, if you consider studying something around this time, something that helps you maybe look at your health from a new angle, from a new perspective, this might make you in the long run, appreciate yourself more. It might make you more confident. It might increase your sense of self-worth, your sense of self-esteem. It might also help you on a mental health front. It's like, it's teaching you how to deal with what feels like challenging moments. It's teaching you how to deal with these moments in a manner that that is much more uplifting, much more optimistic, much more positive, and so on. This could also feel like a new beginning for you from a belief system perspective. So it's like you're being exposed to a new set of beliefs. You want to apply these in your day-to-day. Maybe you don't know exactly how you're going to do this. Maybe it feels like a bit of a stretch, but you don't have to do it alone. You can ask for help. You can connect with others who are doing the same thing. So it may very well be worth it, Scorpios. And that is June for you. My dear Sagittarius, Sagittarius Sun and Sagittarius Rising folks, what does June have in store for you? Well, I can tell you there's a lot of fun to be had this month. There's also a lot of work to be done, a lot of maybe outstanding projects to be wrapped up. There's also quite a bit happening for you relationship-wise and romantically. So let me start by unpacking the month. Mars and Jupiter, throughout the entirety of June, will be traveling through your 5th house. Mars is the planet of action. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. This month, it may feel like creative activities, creative projects just go very, very well. They just turn out all right. You're feeling very inspired. You are feeling like creative ideas are just flowing to you. You feel inspired to act upon your creative ideas. It's also, like I said, a very fun month. So you may be eager for action, for adventure. You may even make plans to travel this month. If you are traveling this month in any shape or form, it's probably going to be very enjoyable. So like a fun, action-packed vacation, you could say. You have lots of energy for your passions, for your hobbies, for parties, for creative endeavors, also for maybe doing things together with kids if you have children, Sagittarius. If you're not in a romantic relationship and you would like to be in a romantic relationship, then I really like this month for you because it feels like there's people out there, there's experiences to be had, there's fun to be had together with potential romantic partners. So from that standpoint, I really, really, really like it. On the 3rd of June, finally, Mercury goes direct. It's been a retrograde since the 10th of May, Mercury goes direct in Taurus in your 6th house of day-to-day work. So if you were experiencing some delays in terms of getting work-related projects across the finish line, then things are likely to move forward a lot easier after the 3rd of June. If you are waiting to hear, to hear back from like a team that you're working with, if you are waiting to connect with a team, to connect with colleagues on a specific project, work-wise, and it just didn't seem to come together, from the 3rd of June onwards, it's looking so much better. So things are clicking into place. On the 4th of June until the last week of October, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 3rd house. So this year, Saturn is in your 3rd house until the end of the year, actually until March of 2023. So you are called to put quite a bit of effort into classes, courses, studies, writing projects. It may just feel like the responsibilities and the duties associated with your education, associated with classes and courses, it might just feel like the responsibilities associated with this are taking a bit of a back seat, or things aren't necessarily moving forward as much as they have up until this point in this particular area of life. But that's okay. Sometimes it's good to revise. It's good to go over what you have learned already. You can't just always kind of like keep moving forward and forward and forward and growing and growing and growing and growing. Although that is the Sagittarian way to always grow. So that's going on as well. On the 10th of June, you're going to experience an aspect that happened twice already. It also happened on the 28th of April and on the 25th of May. On the 10th of June, one more time, Mercury and Taurus in your 6th house is harmoniously aspecting Pluto and Capricorn in your 2nd house. So finally, it might feel like you're signing a contract, or you're wrapping up a deal, or you're wrapping up a work-related project that kind of like went back and forth. And it does seem to have been a collaborative effort. It does seem like you had to work in tandem with someone as part of a team, maybe, or in a one-to-one partnership. Things are turning out pretty nicely. So the work seems to be done, and you seem to be happy with how things have unfolded around the 10th of June, Sagittarians. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your 6th house, so there could be some, let's say, exciting social events or exciting connections that you make in a work environment, or when you go to the gym, for instance. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 7th house right before the full moon on the 14th of June. Actually, 3 days before, 3 days after, it's active already. Right before the full moon that is activating your 1st house of identity and your 7th house of relationships. So what's going on? On the 14th of June, there's some sort of like culmination in one of your one-to-one relationships. There's like this peak that you're reaching together with a partner. It could be a life partner, it could be a business partner, it could be your accountant, for instance. It feels like you're completing something that you've been putting a lot of work into together with someone else. Why do I say that you've been putting a lot of work into this? Especially intellectual work, and maybe work in trying to get on the same page in terms of long-term plans, because this full moon is harmoniously aspecting Saturn in your 3rd house of communication. I would also recommend looking back at what was going on for you on a personal level. Last year, around the 4th of December, did you commit to learning something new? Did you commit to, trying to communicate in a different manner with colleagues, with partners, with significant others? Because it feels like you are achieving a goal around this time that also involves relationships. You seem to be on the same page with a partner, saying that this full moon is in a square to Neptune and Pisces in the 4th house. So you do seem to be agreeing with a partner on something. By the way, if you're not in a relationship, then this could be a time when you feel like, okay, I'm connecting with this person. I could maybe be with them. I could maybe build something with them. This full moon is in a tense aspect to Neptune and Pisces in your 4th house of home. Even though you are in agreement with a partner, or you feel very strongly connected with a partner around this time, there could be something happening at home in private that is still kind of like casting a shadow of a little bit of confusion as to where you're going next. Or maybe you agree with a partner on something. I don't know, maybe you agree to move in with them, and you have to let the people that you're living with already, now you have to let them know, and you're feeling like maybe they're going to be disappointed. You might need to make an announcement about your relationship sector to your family, and maybe you're thinking that some family members may not necessarily kind of like jump for joy. I don't know, maybe because you're going to be spending less time with them. Something around that seems to stand out at the time of this full moon. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in your 5th house, and Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 6th house. So you seem to have a bit of an epiphany on this day as to how maybe something that you didn't necessarily feel very confident about, how that helped you maybe find some creative solutions, how that helped you maybe work on yourself more. This could also be a time when you have like it could be a day when you have like a very atypical, unconventional, creative idea, my dear Sagittarius. I would be careful not to have too much fun on this day, because there is such a thing as too much fun, so that you don't end up hurting yourself. And I'm thinking maybe even physically. Just putting it out there. On the 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your 7th house is harmoniously aspecting Saturn in Aquarius in the 3rd house. So it feels like productive conversations with a partner continue. It could be, once again, a business partner, my dear Sagittarius. Now, the Sun for you rules your 9th house, so you could be having productive conversations with a partner about contracts, about traveling, about studies, about education. You seem to be very productive on this day in collaboration with someone. Also, when it comes to learning something, or when it comes to writing something or wrapping something up in that direction. 18th of June, Venus in the 6th house in Taurus is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in the 3rd house. It might just feel like this is a day when you just have to admit to someone that you're working with that there are certain things that you still don't know yet that well. So if you feel like that is the case, there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in throwing a question out there and saying, listen, I don't have this much experience in this field. How would you approach this? It could also feel like on this day, it could feel like someone at work is asking you to be a bit more collaborative, or is asking you to be a bit more flexible, and you're like, no, this is how I always do it. I don't want to be flexible. I don't want to work around it. I mean, are you adamant because you truly believe in your method, or are you adamant for the sake of being adamant? Just ask yourself that. 21st of June, the Sun moves into Cancer for the next month in your 8th house. So there is a spotlight that is being placed on the area of shared resources, shared finances, and so on. For the next month or so. And Venus in Taurus in the 6th house is harmoniously aspecting Pluto in Capricorn in the 2nd house. There could be good news around money on this day. And finally, you may find a way to collaborate with that colleague that I've been telling you about. On the 23rd of June, Venus moves into Gemini in your 7th house until the 18th of July. This is a beautiful period relationship-wise. Literally, go out, have fun, enjoy yourselves together with your partners. If you are looking to meet someone, great time to date. Literally, I kid you not. In general, relationships with partners, and not just romantic partners, business partners, all types of like one-to-one interactions, they seem to be flowing very smoothly with Venus in the 7th house. On the 28th of June, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces in your fourth house of home. So I'd say maybe there's a feeling of a vision connected with your home and living situation. There's this feeling of maybe the vision being put a little bit on hold. And on the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in the 8th house in Cancer, squaring Jupiter and Aries in the 5th house. However, Venus is in Gemini in your 7th, and it is sextiling Jupiter and Aries in the 5th house. So this could be a day when you're maybe being asked, this could be a time when you're maybe being asked to take a bit of a different standpoint, a different viewpoint when it comes to shared resources. Also, when it comes to how much money, let's say, you pull together with a partner for fun activities or for enjoyable activities, or this could be a time when you have to sit down with a partner, especially if you have kids, and discuss about the budget when it comes to allocating a certain portion of your salary to maybe activities or expenses in general that are allocated with children. This can also be a time when you're feeling like you want to invest in something. Just putting it out there. There could be an opportunity coming up. You're not really sure about it. You're feeling a little bit in a gambling mode. I would maybe ask someone who is, let's say, more experienced when it comes to investments, or someone who you look up to in terms of how they're doing investments wise. I would ask them, what do they think about this opportunity coming up? Is it worth putting money behind it? How would they approach it? It feels like a friend or someone who is experienced in this field might have some really good insights for you. And that, my dear Sagittarius, is June for you. Now, if you are a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, what does this month have in store for you, my lovely Capricorns? Well. A lot going on at home, in private, in your home and family life. literally a lot of energy and action and even money. I would say potentially being directed towards your home and family life. Let's see what else is going on. You could be traveling this month to catch up with family, to see family, to meet with family. You could be traveling together with family members, so you could be planning some short trips possibly. There's also a lot going on for you work-wise, I have to say, this month, especially around the time of the full moon on the 14th of June, a few days before, a few days after. You seem to be completing a work-related project, finally, after a lot of back and forth. Mercury actually, after it goes out of retrograde on the 3rd of June, on the 13th of June, it goes back into your 6th house. So it feels like you have a lot more clarity as to how you can move forward with work-related projects. Now, first and foremost, Mercury goes out of retrograde on the 3rd of June in your 5th house. So I'd say your mind might be sharper and clearer when it comes to creative projects. First and foremost, there seems to have been potentially, especially since the last week of May, a tendency to maybe reconnect with old friends, reconnect with people from your past, maybe even reconnect with old flames, so old, potentially romantic partners. Mercury going back into your 6th house on the 13th of June seems to refocus your mind on, guess what? Work. Newsflash. On the 4th of June, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius in your 2nd house of income. Listen, this year, Capricorns, until March of next year, until the 2nd week of March, you are really putting a lot of effort and time and persistence and commitment into sorting out your finances, maybe revisiting your budget, reviewing expenses, and so on. As much as you'd like to build, sometimes there's this need to revisit, review, maybe slow down, go over what you have done already. So it feels like that's what you're called to do with Saturn in retrograde in this part of your chart until the last week of October. Maybe it's time to revisit the goals that you've set for yourself financially. Maybe it's time to kind of like look back at your expenses, see how you can potentially approach those maybe in a manner that is more sustainable for the long run. And you have probably worked very hard this year and last year to build up your savings, your bank account, etc. Maybe it doesn't feel like you're making a lot of progress while Saturn is retrograde. That doesn't mean that you're not, let's say, improving things in this direction, even if it's not kind of like forward facing, let's put it this way. 10th of June, great day because Mercury in your 5th house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 1st house of identity. So it's a day when you seem to get a lot done when it comes to writing, when it comes to creative projects. You may feel like your mind is very productive on this day. You may have clarity about a creative project. Also, this could be a day when you have deeper clarity, greater clarity, I think you call it, about a romantic situation in your life. This aspect also happened on the 20th of April and on the 25th of May. So one more time on the 10th of June, you might revisit a romantic topic and you could be like, okay, now I know what I want to build upon. Now I know that this is the person that I like. Now I have found the words maybe to tell my romantic partner what I truly enjoy, what makes me feel special. Also a day of great news for those of you who have kids already, a day of great news connected with children, especially news of an educational nature, of course, because that's what Mercury does. Mercury is connected with education, so is Jupiter. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in the 5th house. Some sort of surprise from a romantic partner. That's how I see this playing out. Also, this could be a day when you have like an eccentric but brilliant idea, a creative idea that can help you advance potentially, my dear Capricorns, that can help you advance in your career. It could be a day when you have like an idea, creative idea that could impress a boss. So maybe write those down. 14th of June, as I said, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a full moon activating your axis of service. It's harmoniously aspecting Saturn in your second house of income. So it feels like you are completing maybe a job successfully. You are receiving kudos. Some of you may be receiving a job offer, a new job offer. Some of you might be receiving congratulations for a job well done. I'm liking it. You're like, yes, I've mastered this. I did it. You may have been working on this project, maybe work-wise, as of December. It could also be a time, a full moon, when you feel like you have a bit of a breakthrough when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to a topic or an issue that has been on your mind and maybe not allowing you to like sleep calmly or peacefully for 6 months almost. So since the beginning of December, Capricorns. So I'm liking it. The full moon is in a tense aspect to Neptune in Pisces in the third house. Maybe you don't necessarily have the words to talk about this to other people. There could also be maybe some sort of conversation or social interaction that you have with a colleague where you realize, okay, this is what was triggering me. This is what was giving me anxiety. So it's still a breakthrough. It's still something to be celebrated, I would say. On the 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the fourth house. It may feel like your interactions with family members around this time are maybe reopening an old wound. That's possible. Or you might hit kind of like a sensitive spot. You might trigger someone in your family. Careful, like I would tread a little bit carefully on this day when it comes to interactions with family members, and especially when it comes to expressing anger to family members. Venus, however, is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the fifth house. There could be a sense of a fated encounter on this day that gives you some great creative ideas. Also, a fated encounter, possibly romantically, that gives you greater clarity as to what works for you romantically, especially if you're single. 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in the sixth house is very nicely aspected to Saturn in Aquarius in your second house of income. Okay, so my dear Capricorns, this is a day of a job well done. Again, I told you. I mean, the Sun is in Gemini until the 21st of June. So there's a spotlight that is being placed on work and on maybe solving crises at work. So you seem to solve a crisis successfully. Not everyone's going to like what you have to say. That doesn't mean that you haven't done your job great on this day. On the 18th of June, Venus in the fifth house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in your second house. Someone might ask you to come out to play, to go to a party, but you're like, no, I've got work to do. Or I don't want to spend money. So you could kind of like hold yourself back from going to a social occasion just because you don't want to spend money. I don't know. Possibly. I think that might be it. You could be feeling also a little bit guilty of maybe spending money on pleasure on this day. I mean, pleasure is genuinely one of the things that makes this incarnated life worth living. So you're very good at staying in control. You're very good at disciplining yourselves, Capricorns. Maybe it is time to also have some fun. Just putting it out there. 21st of June, for the next month, the Sun moves into Cancer in your seventh house. So the spotlight will be placed for the next month or so on the area of relationships. And the 21st of June is actually a very romantic day because Venus in your fifth house of romance is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the first house. If you're single, I would go out for a date. I would also get out of the house because you could meet someone around this time. From the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves through Gemini in your sixth house of day-to-day work. You're probably going to enjoy work and interactions with colleagues and clients throughout this period a lot more than in other times or months, let's say. If you need to ask anyone at work for anything, ask them throughout this period from the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, because they're probably going to say yes. And on the 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new moon in your 7th house of relationships in Cancer. It is squaring Jupiter in Aries in your 4th house of home. Let's see. Venus in your 6th house, however, is sextiling Jupiter in Aries in your 4th house of home. You could meet someone new if you aren't already with someone. Now, you might be thinking, this person is quite different compared to what I had in mind in terms of my ideal partner. What is my family going to say? What are my parents going to say? What are my childhood friends going to say? I'd say you can work with it. I'd say you can kind of like make it work in a social environment as well. This could be a time also, if you are already in a relationship, when you travel together with a partner to kind of like meet their parents. That's possible. If you are already in a relationship, there could be a sense of a new beginning happening for your partner in their home life, in their family life. Maybe they're hearing news of growth, of expansion coming from home. Overall, I'm excited for this new moon, even though it feels like maybe you need to kind of like stretch yourself a little bit, talk to some family members, maybe, also think of like moving into a bigger house. For instance, there could be news that determine you to like look for bigger houses and things like that. If the family is growing, if you need to move into a bigger house, you have the connections to help you do this. You don't have to do it on your own. Throw the information out there, reach out to your peers, reach out to your friends, reach out to your colleagues, because people want to offer you their services and they genuinely want to help. So don't feel like you have to be self-sufficient on this one, Capricorns. And that is June. My Aquarius brothers and sisters, Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings. What does June look like for us? Well. I can tell you that our mind, but maybe more so for Aquarius risings, our minds will be on fire. Why? Literal fire. I kid you not. Mars and Jupiter are going to be in our 3rd house of thinking, communication, socialization, classes, courses, until the end of the month. Mars is the ruler also of your 10th house of career, Aquarius. And Jupiter is the ruler of your 11th house of long-term plans and your 2nd house of income. It feels like you're hustling a lot, Aquarius, this month in June, to connect with the right people, to reach out to the right people, to get your ideas in front of the right audience, to seal new deals, to make sales, to make purchases. It feels like you're putting a lot of energy into being very persuasive this month, especially in a professional environment. You might have a lot of presentations to work on. You may have classes to run, workshops to run, webinars, things like that. It's like you're putting your ideas a lot out there, and as a result of this, it does feel like you're probably feeling like you're advancing career-wise. You may score some sweet deals, let's say. You may bring some important people on your side. If you have any sort of writing projects that you need to work on, I do believe that you're probably going to be very adamant about your ideas. Even if you're working with a wider community, I feel like you're going to want to be in charge and kind of like say, my way or no way. This is my idea and I'm going to run with it until the end of time. You are very persuasive. You're very forceful in your discourse throughout the entire month, but people are impressed. And it feels like you're making great progress. If you need to write anything, if you need to learn anything, as I said, your mind is on fire. It's a great month for all these types of activities. But do be careful that you can also be quite pushy with your ideas this month, Aquarius, especially Aquarius risings. On the 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in your 4th house of home and family and living situation. So if you were having some more challenging conversations with family members, also if you had to, I don't know, go over papers, documents connected with property, connected with the home, it does feel like things are kind of like settling and looking much better and brighter and clearer after the 3rd of June, my lovely Aquarius. On the 4th of June until the last week of October, Saturn goes retrograde in your 1st house. Now, remember that Saturn is going to be in your 1st house until March of next year. So this is definitely a period of time in your life to really take care of your physical body, really take care of your health, really examine what does your body need in order to be in tip-top shape. And this could be a time when Saturn is retrograde. This could be a time when you have to kind of like revisit old issues, body-wise, health-wise, but also recognize that sometimes in order to build yourself into whoever it is that you want to be, sometimes you have to look back at, I want to say, past mistakes, or what you would consider mistakes, or past inadequacies. My Aquarius brothers and sisters. On the 10th of June, Mercury in your 4th house is harmoniously aspecting Pluto and Capricorn in the 12th house. It feels like maybe an issue is solved at home, an issue with a family member, an issue with a parent, possibly an issue with a child, maybe if you have children. You seem to talk it out, and you could also have like a very heartfelt conversation at this point in time. There also seems to be greater clarity, maybe on an issue that came up around the 25th of May and also around the 28th of April, dear Aquarians. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your 4th house. Now, this is a day when a family member could have a surprise for you. Technically, on paper, you love surprises. You love things that deviate from the status quo. In reality, I think you like more the surprises that you initiate yourself. So this could take you a little bit by surprise. Maybe kind of like catching you on the wrong foot. Be open to it. Be kind of like spontaneous. Go for that trip with your mom. I don't know. There could be actually a family member from abroad that you hear from, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm coming to visit your hometown. Are you going to, I don't know, welcome me in your home?" That could be the type of news that you hear around this time, dear Aquarians. On the 13th of June, Mercury re-enters Gemini in your 5th house. So greater clarity when it comes to creative projects, greater clarity when it comes to conversations that you have with children, your children, other people's children. Your mind is kind of like once again focused on activities that you find enjoyable. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you're experiencing a full moon activating your 11th house, 5th house axis, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in Aquarius in your 1st house of identity. What's going on here? It feels like you are completing a long-term goal around this time. You are very satisfied with the amount of work that you have put into this goal. It could be something that you started working on or something that became a thing as of December of last year, especially as of the 4th of December of last year. You're like, okay, box ticked. I worked hard. I did it. I've proven myself. What now? That seems to be the question. If you were working on something that you needed to present to the wider audience, public, that you have out there to your tribe, your community, the feedback is probably going to be very good. However, you might still have some doubts around how good you actually are at whatever it is that you worked on. Remember that you may be a little bit too hard on yourself with Saturn in the 1st house. Also ask yourself, are you satisfied with the amount of payment or compensation or energy that you received back from the community after working on this project, doing this for them, and so on? Because life is about balance. And there needs to be an energetic balance in everything. If we give, we create imbalance. If we take, we also create imbalance. So there has to be kind of like a fine balance between giving and taking. And I'm not just referring to money here. I'm referring to time, energy, resources, attention, etc. So do examine whether you got what you wanted and needed and something that felt enough out of whatever it is that you did for others. 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the 3rd house. Now, this could be a day when you strike a bit of a sensitive chord with someone. This could be a day maybe when you trigger someone with your ideas. Do prepare yourself for a bit of a verbal battle, which you're probably not going to shy away from. I mean, Mars is in general the ruler of your 3rd house of communication. So if anything, you like a good intellectual debate. Venus is conjunct the North Node in Taurus in the 4th house of home. There can be a sense of maybe someone from the outside bringing some sort of like gift or something significant into your home and family life. And you're like, oh, I'd like to have more of this in my house, in my home, in my living situation. It's something that I really, really enjoy. 16th of June, the Sun in Gemini in your 5th house is trining Saturn in Aquarius in your first house. It's a very romantic day. Why romantic? I'm like, oh, it's a very romantic day, even though it might not be exactly what you're thinking of right now. Romantic because the Sun is the ruler of your 7th house of relationships. A romantic partner could be doing something nice for you. They might, for instance, I don't know, like take you for like a massage or something like that, or take you out in town and kind of like get you to relax a little bit. If you are not with someone, then it could be a good time to go out, to have some fun, to go to a party. You might even connect with someone. You might have a bit of a flirtation situation going on, and it's going to be like balm for the soul. Because let's face it, with Saturn in the 1st house, you are likely to feel more tired than you would normally feel, Aquarius. On the 18th of June, Venus in the 4th house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in your 1st house. Someone in the family might be asking you to be flexible. You're like, no, I'm not flexible. I'm sticking to my guns. Is it worth it? Are you sticking to your guns? Why? Just because you said something, or just because, I don't know, you want to prove a point? Or would it be, in the grand scheme of things, better if you kind of like figured out a way to work with whatever this family member is asking you? You have free will to decide this, Aquarius. I'm just putting it out there. 21st of June, for the next month, the Sun moves into Cancer in your 6th house of day-to-day work. Okay, you got a lot of work to do for the next month or so. The spotlight is going to be on tasks to be completed, work to be done, routine, health. This is actually a very good day because you seem to reach some sort of compromise with that family member, maybe that I was talking about, or maybe with a partner, if you are in a relationship, with a partner around some sort of like home-related issue. Lovely Aquarians. From 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves through Gemini in your 5th house of romantic love, creativity, children, creative self-expression. Great time for parties. Obviously, you also have work, so work hard, play hard. Great time for dating. A super kind of like inspired period in terms of creative ideas. You may also connect with some sort of intellectual topic a lot. You might really enjoy it. You might kind of like find some really good books, take some really interesting classes, and it feels like your mind is of course it's always stimulated because you're an air sign. But your mind is also enjoying kind of like some intellectual games or taking pleasure in intellectual activities and also in social activities. 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, also, there's a new moon in your 6th house in Cancer. It is squaring Jupiter and Aries in the 3rd house. However, Venus in the 5th house of enjoyment is harmoniously aspecting Jupiter. So my lovely Aquarius, it feels like around this time you're either starting a new job or you may need to take on some sort of like new duty and responsibility at work that also requires you to learn something new. So some of you could be starting a new job. Some of you could be starting a new work-related project. It's going to get you out of your comfort zone mentally. You may need to learn to communicate a little bit differently. You may need to learn a new skill, but you're probably going to enjoy it more than you think you are. And if you do need to learn something, I would get a study buddy. I would get someone that you can work together with, because it's probably going to make it a lot more enjoyable. I dare say. It could also be a time when you decide to join a gym or go for classes. It could be a time when you start a new physical or health related routine. You don't have to do it on your own. You can do it together with others. So maybe get a friend with you, because again, it can feel a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable, Aquarians. And that is June. Now, my dear Pisces, Pisces suns and Pisces rising. So what does June have in store for you? Okay, you got money on your mind, and a lot of it. I kid you not. You're hustling, you're making money, you're spending money, you're like big spender this month with Mars in your 2nd house of income. Also with Jupiter there, you're feeling super, super generous. You might be spending a lot of money this month on traveling, your physical body, appearance, looks, etc. You may also feel very motivated to make more money this month, and it feels like you're going to have the opportunity. So whatever you need to chase it, because with Jupiter in your 2nd house of income, you have the possibility until October to increase your income, to chase new opportunities, to bring a new source of income into your life, and to essentially receive more resources for what you bring to the table. It feels like you're also much more courageous and bold this month when it comes to tooting your own horn, when it comes to pinpointing, listen, this is what I'm good at, especially in a professional environment. This is why I deserve to get paid. So I'm liking it, but also, like I said, you could find at the end of the month that not only have you chased new opportunities to make money and probably even scored some, you've also spent a lot, which is the nature of Mars. It's like go, 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 go. 3rd of June, Mercury goes direct in your 3rd house of communication. Finally, you may feel like you're kind of like understanding whatever it is that you were studying or learning, or you may feel like you are finally disentangling from the 3rd of June onwards some really convoluted, like, I don't know, emails, communications with someone, communications with a family member, communications with a colleague, with a sibling, with all of the aforementioned potentially. It's like, okay, now I get what you're saying. If you are looking to sell or to purchase something, and there have been delays in this space, especially something for the home, or if you're looking to sell a home, then the process might be finally moving forward from the 3rd of June onwards, once Mercury gets out of retrograde. 4th of June, Saturn goes retrograde in your 12th house until the last week of October. Now, you've been making a lot of progress. I'm sure you have, because Saturn has been in your 12th house for quite some time. You've been making a lot of progress when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to dealing with your demons, your shadow, etc. Pretty much as of December 2020. Now, progress isn't just kind of like a straight line. Sometimes you go back and forth, you revisit old issues, etc. So until October, until the last week of October, it may feel like you're looking a little bit back at the progress so far when it comes to mental health, when it comes to dealing with the shadow, when it comes to dealing with some of your fears, when it comes to releasing some of the structures in your life. You might not necessarily feel like you're making progress moving forward. That doesn't mean that you're not evolving, my dear Pisces. 10th of June, Mercury in your 3rd house is trining Pluto and Capricorn in the 11th house, so you could be having a very productive team meeting, brainstorm, a very productive work-related conversation on this day. Finally, you could be selling something You could be signing the contract. You could be purchasing something that has been taking you a long time to do so. Also because of the Mercury retrograde. On the 11th of June, Venus is conjunct Uranus and Taurus in your third house. Now, this could be a day of like sudden news coming from a sibling or from a colleague. This could also be a day when you unexpectedly bump into someone and you're like, oh, I like you. It could be an ex, it could be a romantic partner, it could be a potential romantic partner. You also seem to have maybe a really kind of like unconventional, out of the box creative idea on this day. That's certainly very, very possible, my dear Pisces. I would write it down so that you don't forget it. 13th of June, Mercury goes back into your fourth house, so it's kind of like your mind is again directed towards home-related matters. It happens right before, let's see, the full moon in Sagittarius on the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon is triggering your axis of public life versus private life, career versus home. And it is harmoniously aspecting Saturn in the 12th house. Okay, so finally, you could be making a public announcement to, I don't know, bosses, your team at work about something that's been happening behind closed doors. This could be a time also when you finalize potentially a process of like you getting a new job, or a process of you being promoted. Maybe it's something that was going on behind the scenes, but now you're like, okay, we can finally share the news with the rest of the world, because all of the other issues that I had to deal with are kind of like out of the picture. You could be receiving a new job offer. You could be promoted around this time. You may also feel like you can reveal some sort of like success to the outside world. It is a time of success professionally. It's also a time when it may feel like your status in the world is changing, because the 10th house is not just career, it's also how we contribute to society. It's also our status. What do I mean by that? So, for instance, being single or being engaged or being married, that's a status as well. So maybe you're going through a change in that direction. Maybe going from being a parent, my apologies, from not being a parent to being a parent. That's again some sort of like a change in status. It feels like it's something that's been kind of like a long time coming, but now you can finally breathe easily after dealing with all sorts of behind the scenes issues. Physically, you're feeling a little bit drained and exhausted. I'm just gonna put it out there. So give yourself some time to rest. 15th of June, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries in the second house. Be careful for scammers. Be careful how you spend your money. Saved by the bell. There's a bell ringing. 16th of June, the sun in your fourth house is harmoniously aspecting Saturn in Aquarius in the 12th house. A health-related issue or something that you've been working on health-wise behind the scenes seems to be playing out the way that you wanted it to play, the way that you were hoping that it would play out. You are feeling tired again on this day, so it is a good time to spend time at home with the family. Not push yourself. You've done enough work, my dear Pisces. Let's see. On the 18th of June, Venus in your third house is squaring Saturn in Aquarius in the 12th. Okay, so you may want to connect with someone socially. You may want to get out of the house. However, it feels like there's something that needs to be taken care of before you can do that. Maybe something that is kind of like holding you. It may feel like you're a little bit imprisoned on this day. It's like, I just want to go out and have a great time, but no, I have to stay at home because I don't know. You might have a cold or something like that. It's only like a very short-term aspect. So it's only for the day. It's only for the 18th of June. So it's not going to last forever. 21st of June, the sun moves into Cancer in your fifth house. until, well, for the next month, basically. So the spotlight is going to be placed on enjoyable activities, fun, children, spending time with children. It's time to party, Pisces. You've worked hard. You've been drained of energy. You scored a win career-wise mid-month. It's time to like really do what brings you pleasure, essentially. From the 23rd of June until the 18th of July, Venus moves through Gemini in your 4th house. You may have some really kind of like enjoyable conversations, even short trips together with family members. You may be spending time to like decorate the house, buy new stuff for the house, maybe paint a wall. It feels like relationships with family members are kind of like going super smoothly throughout this period. Let's see. 29th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, there's a new one in Cancer in the 5th house. It is squaring Jupiter and Aries in your 2nd house of income. At the same time, Venus in Gemini in your 4th house of home. It is sextiling Jupiter and Aries in the second house. It feels like you're committing to some sort of like new beginning, my dear Pisces, connected with either children. So some of you might have a child around this time. Some of you might commit to a new creative project. Some of you might commit to spending more money, more of your resources, more of your time to pleasant, enjoyable activities at this point in time. It feels like you want to grow. It definitely feels like you're on a path of self-development. And of course, that is the case a lot with Jupiter this year, either in your 1st house or in your 2nd house in transit. It also feels like you need to get a little bit out of your comfort zone by doing pleasant activities or by engaging in creative activities that are novel, that are new, that require a little bit of courage, that maybe require you to explore the depths of your subconscious, potentially in a novel way. This could be very fun if you kind of like engage in this type of like new hobby together, maybe with a family member. It could also be something that you can do from the comfort of your home, so you don't have to necessarily go out into the world. Like I said, some of you might be giving birth around this time. Some of you might be falling pregnant, if that's something that you do want to have in your life. Some of you may also, who have children, may experience the joy and the excitement of your child as they enter a new chapter of their life. It's an exciting and emotional time. It seems to cost you money. It also seems to kind of like get you out of a comfort zone, but in a good way. It's like, yes, this is exciting. I've got lots to look forward to. I'm becoming more than I was up until this point. And that is June for you, Pisces. Folks, thank you once again for tuning in for your June horoscope. Remember that if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. If you go to the services section, you can find the various services that I offer. Right now, I'm only taking bookings for live astrology consultations, where we can do natal chart readings, we can look at the year ahead, and so on. Also, remember, if you're following me on Instagram, that I only have one account. That is at Rux Unbelievable, R-U-X, Unbelievable in one word. There have been some scammers popping up. I would never, ever, ever direct message you to ask for a donation or for a reading. The only place you can book a reading with me is via my website. So if you do receive that kind of message, because there have been some scammers out there, block, report, don't pay attention to them. Enjoy June. Let us know how it's going in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe, folks. Thank you. Bye.